Hi guys, it's Lucy and today I'm here to do my May wrap-up. I read 6 books in the month of May and I gave one book 2.5 stars, one book 3 stars, 3 books 3.5 stars, and one book 4 stars. So yeah, so it was an okay reading month, and yeah, I'm just gonna get into the books that I read. They're in the order that I read them. So the first book that I read during the month of May was Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Machado. I listened to the audiobook, which was read by Amy Landon, and I gave this book 3 stars. This is a book of short stories slash an anthology. Isn't it an anthology if it's the same author? I don't know. But it's a book of short stories written by Carmen Machado, and they all have to do with women and like their bodies and other parties. This book was pretty disappointing to me because I thought that I was going to love it. I really truly did, because I love feminist books. I love like magical realism, and this combines those things, or I thought it was going to, but I didn't really consider the fact that I don't love reading about sex, and there was a lot of that in here, along with the fact that the magical realism just didn't make sense most of the time. I only truly liked 2 out of, I think there were 10 stories, and the rest of them went from a meh to like, what the heck is going on? I gave it 3 stars because while I didn't really enjoy it, I could tell that Machado was a good writer, and like the stories that I did enjoy were good. The next book that I read was The Price Guide to the Occult by Leslye Walton. I gave this book 2.5 stars, and there's a trigger warning for self-harm, so keep that in mind. I also received this book via NetGalley in exchange for an honest review, but obviously my opinions are not swayed. Yeah, so this book really went downhill for me quite quickly. I was having a pretty good time the first 40%. I was reading this book for a while, which is another sign that it wasn't the greatest. But the first 30-40%, I was kind of enjoying it. I do tend to enjoy meandering stories, so it wasn't that big of a deal for me that not a lot happens in the first part. But because not a lot happens in the first part, the second part, where all the action is, you can really see the stark difference in the pacing. So I think the book needed to, the pacing needed to be fixed, because the second half of the book, so much happened so quickly. I thought that all the characters were sloppily done. The plot was sloppy. Like I said, the end had so much happening, just because I feel like the author was how do I resolve this? I don't know. And the overall resolution to the entire plot was really lackluster for me. I did not enjoy that. And it's just a giant deus ex machina? Deus ex machina? How do you say that? Deus ex machina, right? I don't know. You know that word. Was basically how it ended, and I did not like that. Also, I was really disappointed because Leslye Walton wrote The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender, which a lot of people love, and it was on my TBR, but then I got this book from NetGalley, and I was like, oh, well, it's by this author that a lot of people love, so I'll read it, and I really did not enjoy it. I hated it, yeah. So it makes me kind of not want to read that book. I took it off my TBR for now, but a lot of the reviews for this book do say that that book is better, because a lot of people went into this book after reading that book. So I don't know if I'll still read it, but I'm just putting that out there. Like I said before, this has a trigger warning for self-harm, and that is discussed in great detail, specifically cutting. So if you have a history of that, or you think that reading about someone else dealing with cuts or anything like that could trigger you, I really warn against reading this. But I feel like if you're looking for representation of your mental illness, that there are better books out there and that are better written, so I can't recommend this. The rest of the books that I read were all read while I was in Thailand, on the plane to or from Thailand, or somewhere in Thailand. So if you don't know, I went to Thailand. I should have a Thailand haul up at some point, maybe after this video, maybe 2 videos after this, unsure. But it's coming, know that. But yeah, I read the rest of these books near when I was in Thailand. So the first book that I read was Castle in the Sky by Diana Wynne Jones. This is the second book in the Howl's Moving Castle trilogy, I guess. This is more of a companion than a direct sequel, because we follow a different character, completely in kind of a new place in the world also. But the other characters from the first book do show up in this. And in this one, we follow a carpet dealer named Abdullah, and we see what happens after he gets a mysterious customer who sells him a magic carpet. So clearly this book takes a lot of elements from Arabian fairy tales, clearly the magic carpet, all I could think of was Aladdin, so And because of that, it did have like a fairy tale like quality, which I think it needed. I think Diana Wynne Jones does that well. It needed like the fairy tale like quality to make it not quite believable, because this is a fantasy story, but one of the characters' named is Flower in the Night. That's her name. So I feel like in another book it just wouldn't work, but because of the way it's written, it works. However, I was a little disappointed by this because I loved Howl's Moving Castle so much. I gave this 3.5 stars. I don't know if I mentioned that. But yeah, I loved Howl's Moving Castle so much. I love the movie. And it's kind of making me think back. Like, I watched the movie before I read the book. And I'd seen the movie at least twice before I read the book, actually. And then I've seen the movie like 3 times since then. I'm kind of wondering if my love for the movie like colored how I read the book the first time. Because this book, Castle in the Sky, seems like not as good, but I don't know if it's actually not as good as if the writing quality degraded, or if the first book just wasn't as good as I hyped it up to be, and they're both of the same quality, if that makes sense. Gravity Falls, Dipper and Mabel's Guide to Mystery and Nonstop Fun by Rob Renzetti, Shane Howden, and Alex Hirsch. This is like a fun little activity book from the series Gravity Falls. And yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a fun book. I read Journal 3, which I don't know if you can see here. But I read that last year. So if you have read that and enjoy Gravity Falls, like, this book adds nothing new. It was, I think, written before the end of the series. So it just adds nothing new if you've read Journal 3. It's a fun little addition. It's probably cheaper than Journal 3. If you have kids and they like Gravity Falls, I would recommend it for them. But I was a little disappointed in the sense that, like, I knew what I was getting when I got it. It's an activity book, but there weren't that many activities. So that was a little disappointing. Like, not that I was going to do them, but if I were a kid who got an activity book, I would want the activities, you know? So keep that in mind. And the second to last book that I read was Furyborn by Claire Legrand. I gave this book 4 stars. And I received an ARC through Bookish First in exchange for an honest review. This is the first book in a new YA trilogy that's set in a world where there's a prophecy of 2 queens, and one is the Blood Queen, who will like bring destruction, and one is the Sun Queen, who will save them all. And we follow 2 characters from completely different times. In the past, we follow Riel, who has the ability to manipulate all 7 elements. There's elemental magic in this world, and that is a sign that you're one of the queens. So she has to go through trials and tribulations so that she can prove that she is indeed the Sun Queen and like a good person. And then 1,000 years into the future, we follow Ileana, who is a bounty hunter, and like, I forgot what they call her in the book, but like, she's like a fearsome, like a fierce bounty hunter. Like, people fear her. And her mother goes missing, so she's on a hunt to try and find her mother. And kind of these stories kind of have nothing to do with each other, but they have everything to do with each other, you know? This book had a lot of hype. I didn't think it was going to live up to it, but I definitely thoroughly enjoyed reading this. I forgot that I had the physical ARC because I'm holding my computer for this video, but yeah, I have the physical ARC. So I'm going to put it down now, though, so yeah. But yeah, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked the 2 perspectives. I know a lot of people don't like multiple perspectives, but I liked it. It kept me engaged. Like, in case you were getting like a little bored with one person's story, you just hop right into the other person's story, and like vice versa. Not that I was getting bored, but you know, like, it just keeps you on your toes. I don't have too much to say about it other than I really enjoyed it. I liked Riel's story better than Ileana's, because I thought Ileana was kind of a bitch. And annoying, which is weird if you read the book, that I think that, but yeah. And the last book that I read in the month of May on the plane back to America when I was leaving Thailand was Chaotic Good by Whitney Gardner. I received an ARC of this through NetGalley in exchange for an honest review, and like I said before, it doesn't affect anything. I gave this book 3.5 stars. This follows a girl named Sam who is a cosplayer, and she's really into like sewing and like cosplay, and so she posts her cosplay on her blog online, and this not invites, but like a lot of trolls like get wind of it, and so she starts getting basically harassed by sexist trolls from like the nerdy geeky community. And in tandem, her and her family have moved to a new town, and she goes to the new comic books, not the new, but she goes to like her new comic book store, and she ends up being interrogated by the sexist guy who works there. And so because of this, her brother suggests that she's dress up like a guy the next time she goes into the comic book store, and we kind of see the shenanigans ensue from there. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 3.5 stars like I mentioned. I think this was a fun light read with like some heavier elements because Sam is dealing with cyberbullying and like sexist people. I love the descriptions of Sam's sewing and like the Dungeons and Dragons game. There's also a little bit of like mixed media because like Sam joins the Dungeons and Dragons group. So like while they're playing the game, there's like little comic strips of like them playing like their characters. And it's really fun. And I thought it dealt well with like the gatekeeping thing that goes on in like the geeky / nerdy community, especially in regards to women. The book is decently diverse. There's her twin brother is gay, and one of her new friends is black and gay. My only like one big issue is there's another character who she meets there who's the guy in the comic book store who's like mean to her, and he's kind of the embodiment of like everything that's wrong with, I guess, nerdy geek male culture, where everything he says is sexist, everything like he says is like terrible, like he has no seemingly redeeming qualities at all. And I don't know, that just screamed unrealistic to me, especially because he's friends with the other people that Sam makes friends with, and they seem to be very against like all the things he's saying. So it doesn't really make sense for them to be like friends with him if that's all he is and that's all he says. So it just didn't seem realistic to me. But yeah, those are all my feelings towards all the books that I read in the month of May. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any opinions about any of the books that I mentioned in this video, please be sure to leave a comment down below. And also tell me what was your favorite book that you read in May. I'd love to hear about it. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel because I make more videos where I talk about books. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!